Hi there, my name is Phaedra Antioco, and I'm an occupational therapist, pain and trauma relief coach, and movement specialist. And you might be wondering, why are you talking about trauma, Phaedra? Why are you doing this hidden traumas of the 5Ds? And the 5Ds came about in real estate when there were people having to sell their houses. And why did they have to sell their house? What made them have to forcefully sell? Well, it was disease, it was divorce, it was debt, and it was the death in the family perhaps, or it was just disappointment, something in life, a job didn't work out, they got disappointed, they had to move and sell. So that's where I came up with this name. But I also, as a therapist and a person who's experienced her own personal pain and traumas, physical and emotional, I see this with all of my clients that usually with stubborn pain, persistent pain that won't go away, usually there's an underlying theme, there's an underlying trauma. And what makes me unique as a therapist and a pain specialist is I look for those hidden traumatic events. I help you get to the root cause of the pain, which is oftentimes a trauma that has happened. And we are the sum of our lives and our experiences and the emotional hurts that we've had and the physical falls and injuries we've had and the surgeries we've had and the scar tissue that develops. So it's really important to look at these and pull out those weeds by the root. We don't want to just mow the grass with the weeds still in it because they're going to pop up again right away real quick in a couple days, or they're going to start popping all over your garden and causing chronic illness and health problems. And honestly, we're going to talk about the hidden traumas of divorce today, and let's include breakups in there and heartbreaks. And the reality is, many of my clients, we are working through this. They spent 25, 30 years in a marriage, raising children with maybe an alcoholic or a narcissist, that's a big one, and feel abused, and they finally break away. And often in a session with me, there's tears and there's emotions, and they just break down. So we've got to get to the root cause of this today. And the hidden traumas it's a tough topic. And I know this because I'm getting so many emails from you about the hurts, and we're kind of like stirring up, we're digging up the grave of all this stuff that's been buried down there. And there's grief involved and there's heartache involved. And so we need to look at that to help break free from the pain, whether it's physical pain or emotional pain. So I just want to check in with you and just see if you have any questions. And if you want confidentiality, there's a Q&A box in there. And then on the chat box, you could just message the panelist and that'll come just to me. All right, so let me just pull up some notes here. Now, I'm curious, if you're watching, have you had a divorce? Or were you a product of divorced parents? Do you, as an adult, hold on to that pain? Because sometimes, I tell you, there's so many traumas that are in divorce. And I'll tell you what a client told me today. I told her I'm doing this series. What did you learn in your divorce? Because she was a single mother of 3 children, right? And what she told me was, first of all, the trauma of even considering a divorce can be traumatic. And then, especially if you're of a certain faith or practice a certain religion, it might be absolute taboo, right? And then it's like, okay, do I want this divorce? Do I do it? I feel like it will be helpful for me and it will start to get rid of this depression or this stuck feeling that I'm having. But what is everybody else going to think of me? How am I going to be perceived as a mother, as a father, as a parent, as a husband? You know, societal impacts of getting a divorce. That can be a trauma. Did I fail at this? Am I a loser at being married? That's another trauma that I've heard can happen. And my clients have told me this. You know, then just the process of going through the divorce can be highly traumatic, let alone then talking about the years, or maybe hopefully just a brief time you choose to get out of there, but the years that you've spent in the emotional pain of the marriage that isn't working, right? And then say you're the mom, and that's traditional here, maybe you're the dad too, so this will apply for both sexes, that you leave the marriage and you have to figure out, well, how am I going to find a job? I'm a single parent with kids. They are my priority right now. Or I've been a domestic engineer for so many years. I don't know how I'm going to survive. And he's going to be so cruel and he's going to take all the money. And people just stay in those relationships. And when really all you want to do is be a parent and love your child through this. And oftentimes, as I did, I suffered through my parents' divorce. And even today, as old as I am, it still impacts me. And I'm going to share my crazy story with you today because it's absolutely nuts. So then it's about you're in this marriage and you need to leave it, and it's the frustration of not having control. They're an alcoholic or they're very abusive emotionally or physical to you, and you can't fix them. And that's where huge codependency comes in. And if you are a person who says yes to everybody and no to yourself all the time, and really have a hard time putting yourself first for self-care, then I really want you to consider looking up and studying a little bit into codependency and what that is, right? And then as a parent going through a divorce, perhaps you're going to worry about obviously what the world thinks of you, what your friends and family are going to think, but what are your children going to feel? How are they going to suffer? Because that's really, how are they going to be affected? Or you might need to protect them from your spouse, or they need their father and you can't stand him, but you have to act like you can tolerate him. So what are you tolerating? And if you're not divorced and you're in a marriage where you clench, where you brace, or a relationship, it's either marriage or relationship, period, whether it's even with a dear friend. I've lost my bestest friend through a real challenging time of grief about 4 years ago that I couldn't pull myself out of. And it breaks my heart. I never thought that we'd break up. And here's the deal. Like I've said this, okay, the Costco membership. This is my deal with the Costco membership. I'm a single person. You're allowed to have 2 people on the card. I've had my own, but it's stupid. So what I do is if I'm dating someone, I'll share the Costco membership. Well, when we break up, then you go to pay for your Costco and they're like, this card is invalid. Heart sink. So I say, okay, forget this man thing. I'm going to use my best friend. And then we broke up, and then the Costco card gets canceled again. This is just a funny little joke that I have. So it's like, who are you going to share your Costco card with? So there's lots of changes that can happen in relationships, and it could leave us just without a foundation. And so I've had breakups with friends. I've had breakups with boyfriends, and it's been quite a challenge. And it all really started with my parents' own divorce, which really was traumatic for me. And what's happened recently, and I'll just share this with you. This is the wedding topper from my parents' wedding in 1969. Okay. And I value this. And this was my parents' wedding pictures. My mom ripped them up as many as she could, and she sent these to me gratefully because I want to know where I came from, because my parents were completely in love. They met when they were 13 years old. They lived 2 blocks away from each other in New York, and they loved each other. And we were a fine family for a long time, a close-knit family. But then all of a sudden, when I was 12, it was ripped away. And a year and a half ago, so my mom's really holding on to this my father. If I would mention him, oh my God, her blood would boil. In fact, she thought she was protecting me, but she kept me from him for way too many years. And it wasn't from 12 to 18, I never got to see my father. I couldn't even speak of him, or she would become like the devil in rage. Okay, if you're a parent, don't talk bad about your child's parent, your other parent, please. So a year and a half ago, I get a call from my father, and he says, your mother's having me arrested. My heart sank. Here's my dad going to jail. Apparently, there was a warrant out for his arrest for past child support and alimony. I was approaching 40. My father spent 5 days in jail. And I learned that when you go to jail, you, the family, have absolutely no rights. You have no idea what's happening to them while they're in there. And I was hearing rumors that they took him off of his pain medications for his back. Well, hello, opiate withdrawal in prison. They took away his heart meds. And I was just besides myself. And my mother said I had nothing to do with it. I raged at her. I screamed at her. I went months without talking to her. She said I had nothing to do with it. And sure enough, she did not. It turns out a paper did not get filed correctly in the court when he signed the house over to her. But you know what? that Pandora's box got stirred up. So what did she do? She hired a mediator. She hired a lawyer. It got brought up 20 some years later, since 1995 in 2018, and she decides she's going to get her revenge for this. And I asked her, please, Mom, stop this. You have to stop this. Let alone, you guys, and you know this if you've gone through a divorce, the cost of a divorce, the cost of lawyer fees. I mean, you're at least a $5,000 bill right there. And who wants to spend their money on some lawyer to handle things? And let me tell you, being a lawyer who handles family issues, God bless you, because that is a challenge, right? So coming up here in October 2019, I have a plane ticket and I have to go to a court date to stand by my father and try to clear this up because my mother is unreasonable and I can't speak to her and she won't drop it. So here I am in my 40s and I'm having to deal with the divorce of my parents. And it is so upsetting to the point it makes my blood boil. I mean, I just can't even believe this story. So I'm telling you this story. It's been in my heart. I've been wanting to share it for quite a while. Isn't it insane? Isn't it insane? Okay, so these are the crazy things that happen when you go through the trauma of a divorce, whether you're a child or whether you're an adult. So I want to hear from you. I want to hear what you've got going on, what's happening in your lives, and how I can support you today as we do this live group therapy session here today. And again, if you want to be private, I totally honor that. I get that. And you definitely have a right to do that. It's not a problem. But I do want you to reach out because that's how we heal. Oftentimes we have so many hidden layers underneath what's happening with us, right? And going through divorce itself, it can be super traumatic. All right, and again, almost right now in the United States, almost 50% of all marriages end in divorce or separation. Researchers estimate that 41% of all first marriages end in divorce. 60% of second marriages end in divorce. And 73% of all third marriages end in divorce. And the US has the 6th highest divorce rate in the world. Okay, and now what are the top reasons for divorce? It can be financial issues, financial matters. Maybe a couple, they're struggling with debt and they're constantly fighting about their finances. Or maybe one partner earns all the money and makes all the decisions involving money. That can cause problems. Or perhaps you're the wife who sacrificed your career and maybe there's resentment there because you took your time cooking dinner for your husband every night and taking care of the kids and making sure they were taken to soccer and to dance and to gymnastics, and you put your life on hold and now they're flying away off in the empty nest you have, and then things start to cause problems, right? And maybe one partner overspends or doesn't manage the money in the right way. So these are all things that cause a lot of resentments, and pain starts to come up from that, you know. Or perhaps as we get older, and this is happening with the baby boomers, they're calling it a gray divorce, where they grow apart and things just aren't working anymore. Or there's infidelity and the rise of the internet. People are connecting in chats, in all kinds of places, websites that are designed even for cheating. That's out there. And infidelity is such a form of betrayal. Heck, even being asked to divorce or being broken up with lead to such feelings of abandonment. Are you with me here? Has this happened to you? Are you feeling any triggers right now as we talk about this? You know, and nowadays our health is improving. We're living longer. Life expectancy has increased. And maybe if your partner doesn't stay healthy or fit or active, you're frustrated and you want to go travel the world, but you can't. So you want to leave. This is real. And I hear it a lot of times, right? And a really big issue that leads to divorce, a big problem, is addiction. And I know for my own family, that's what ended my family. And addiction can definitely have a form of unfaithfulness because your partner might be choosing their drugs or their poor habits over you and the family. So it really triggers you. And Not only young children are affected by divorce, but also adult children. That is what happened to me. My mother actually got married when I was about 35 years old. And here is this man who moves into my child family home. My mother's acting like a teenager in love, and she's texting, and I mean, I was happy for her, but I thought, whoa, I better run home. I got to fly home and get my Barbies out of that house because he's moving in and he's throwing stuff out. Right? So it was pretty traumatic for me. Even long after I left home, I didn't live in the state. I lived across the country, but it was uncomfortable, and integrating some new man into my life, that when I call my mother and I tell her my deepest, darkest fears, that he's sitting there right there and he's a stranger to me. So that was super uncomfortable. And if you've been through a serious breakup or divorce, I mean, it can be so much pain, and even more pain than you think you can handle. Maybe you're not eating, maybe you're not sleeping, or maybe you're just so out of balance, grief sets in, and then you go into a freeze response, right? Maybe you're having a really tough battle in a divorce and you're fighting all the time, and then you're just like, and you can't sleep and you're restless, or you eat too much, or you just reach for those carbs and those unhealthy inflammatory foods just to help you feel better. These are the things that we have to look at and really make those changes. Maybe after the divorce or breakup or infidelity, because betrayal is real, you might feel like you're damaged goods or would never find another partner to share your life with. And perhaps you've gained weight from all the shock, or perhaps your ego's just really bruised. Maybe you've lost your confidence. And the reality is, breakups, they trigger really deep wounds within us. Like, it literally doesn't necessarily have to do with the other person. And that's what makes healing from a divorce really challenging. And on the surface, it feels like we're sad about the person we just ended the relationship with. But underneath it all, and the willingness to be self-aware, we can start to make the connections that lead us way back into early childhood. And usually it has to do with a parent, such as a mother or father, but sometimes it can be related to a sibling or another authority figure, like a grandparent or a foster parent, or an aunt and uncle who raised you. And also really big trauma with huge abandonment wounds, with being adopted, being given up for adoption. I've worked with people, and there is just this, I can't tell you how prevalent it is, this strong feeling of abandonment and unlovability, and nobody cares about you, and it's just down to the core. Even if you're happily married, you are loved by everyone in your community, there's still oftentimes that feeling, deep sense of abandonment. And then that's where that wounds come from. We have these deep abandonment wounds, and all of us are going to have some kind of wounding from our early childhood, regardless of the story. And it's an inevitable fact of life. I still think of times in school where my teachers upset me, but we've got a lot of garbage to work out of our body, and that's okay, right? Because many people experience trauma of one kind or another. And perhaps you were traumatized by your ex or by your parents or both. But the key is to overcome that instinctual fight or flight response and to do what's best for you and for your children. That's the reality is. So as a therapist and a coach online here, I work with trauma responses. And oftentimes trauma responses can get trapped in the body. I learned this after my serious car accident. I had a treatment, and all of the remembrance, my body tissue memory of the car accident came up. I mean, fear, screaming, crying. I'm not kind of crying, just red face, just completely wrecked. And it just shows itself in my life. And you might not know this, and I just will share my experiences. And if we ever work together, if you ever wanted to come get treatment or work in a group with me, we can get down deep into those tissue memories. I went and got a pain injection in my leg on Friday. It was PRP with amniotic membrane injected in with a live x-ray. I've done it probably 4 times. I've never had a problem. But this time was different. As soon as the doctor injected inside the broken bone I had, this time, this one spot, it must have been how and where I broke it. And it was on the inside of my shin. And oh my God, I cried bloody murder, screaming in the foot and ankle surgeon's office who was doing the injection. He was like, and I was like, okay, and I know this, we need to feel in order to heal. So he left, his assistant left, and I said, please just let me stay in here and let me just grieve. I just need to feel this. I just need to release it, because let me tell you, there are so many hidden traumas that get stuck in our body, so many hidden layers that we need to take care of. And that viscerally happened to me. Now I'm curious if anyone here has been in that situation where they've experienced tissue memory. We have a lot of you on. I'm not getting any action going on. Nobody's really talking. So I know you guys are all here. Yeah, right. So someone's saying they have, and I'd love for you if you want to share. When we get rid of the busy, when we stop scrolling the internet, when we put our phones down or our computers or tablets away and we're quiet, and our head stops becoming like a pinball machine, that's when things can come up. And that's what happened to me yesterday. I'm vowing not to do 14-hour days. Vowing. I quit at 4:15 p.m. yesterday. And as soon as I stopped, I was there alone with my thoughts. And it got pretty powerful. So I had to choose, am I going to sit here and dwell on this, or I'm going to do something nice to help myself to rewire my brain out of the emotional pain that I was having? So I said, I have to do it. I'm going to go to yoga. So I went to a hot yoga class, which not easy, haven't done it in a while, but I did it. I was there with other people, so there was community around, and I was able to get some self-care. Then I went to the hot tub and was able to work my muscles out. So instead of dwelling, I had awareness. We're going to talk about awareness today of our emotions, but then I was able to take the right action steps to help me feel better. That didn't involve diving into a pint of ice cream or a bottle of wine or anything else that we use as addiction. You know, I'm craving to watch TV. I will do that one day, watch a movie. But the reality is we have to choose and we have to be conscious. But the first step is looking at what our wounds are. What are your patterns in your relationship? Curious if you're tuning in, or write me about this. Have you repeatedly chosen the same type of person to be in relationship with? And there is a book by Dr. Amir Levine. It is an amazing book. It is called Attached. Now, through my experience training as a trauma therapist and somatic experiencing, I have learned that we all have different attachment styles. And over the next couple of months, we'll be learning more about that. The first one is secure attachment. You were a child, you had all your needs met. When you fall down, your parents right there to take care of you, you know. Or there's anxious attachment. Maybe you didn't know when your parent was going to be there, and you were very insecure and nervous. And so you never know when your partner's going to come or go, and you need to know. You need to have them around. You become more needing of them. Or perhaps you're an avoidant ambivalent attachment, where maybe your parents smothered you or there was some abuse, and you really have to keep people at an arm's distance away, or you prefer to be more of a loner. That can impact your attachment styles. So those are the predominant ones, and that's how we enter relationships. And it's almost as if we're trying to heal a child wound sometimes. And you know, if you're in a healthy marriage, a healthy relationship going on 40 years, you know, great for you. God bless you. You did something right. If you're happy, you did something right. Maybe your first marriage was terrible and you did the deep inner work that it takes and you got better. We need to consider that. Let's see. Yeah, that's heavy. Woo! All right, so let's going back here to my notes. And again, feel free to put your questions in as we talk today. Just bottom line, losing someone we love, even if the relationship wasn't what we truly wanted or needed, it's plain hard. Human attachment is real. And it isn't in your head, it's in your brain. It is in your hard wiring. And some people relate the break of a human attachment bond to an addiction. But really, it's worse. It's like coming off of heroin. And we're primarily wired to bond with people and rely on each other. And when that ends, and often it's surprising and it's abrupt, then a lot of our past comes up. So I want you to check out the book called Attached by Dr. Amir, A-M-I-R, Levine. And he does talk about attachment styles. And honestly, literally, after a relationship, whether you know it was the wrong one and you leave, or it's a loved relationship and then there's infidelity and abandonment and betrayal, I'm telling you what, it's withdrawal. It's withdrawal. And every time you reach out again, and especially with women, women get bonded sexually with a man and it releases that oxytocin. That is the hormone that is released when a mother gives birth to connect the mother and bond the mother to the baby. And women are exceptionally vulnerable to this oxytocin high. And maybe you can think about when you were younger and you were falling in love and that first heartbreak that can happen. It literally is that oxytocin withdrawal. And you know that back and forth, we break up, we get back together, we break up, we get back together. That is the dance. And that is a toxic trauma bond. And you just sometimes have to cut the cord, you have to cut ties, you have to have no contact. There's even an amazing book, if you're young in your 20s or 30s, it might be more relating to you, but it is called No Contact, the no contact rule, because each time you have that phone call or you see them for coffee or whatnot, it just gets those hormones going and it's like crack and you're addicted and it can be like a withdrawal. So it's really important because love changes the physiology of the brain. And you experience trust in a relationship at the most basic level, especially when you're intimate and sharing bodies together. It can be really traumatic. And that's why lovers are so open and vulnerable, and they often act, right, like happy kids together, right? Your brain is open to love and safety, and then it has to cope with betrayal and abandonment. You no longer feel safe. You feel alone, and your brain is programmed to protect you. So that's why, I don't know if you've seen any of my notes, but this has been a real heavy series, this hidden trauma of the 5 Ds of divorce, debt, disappointments, debt, all of that. So what I created, it's just for a limited time. I have a spot for about 4 people, just 4 people. I'm going to be doing a small group. We're going to do a small group intensive. It's just for 4 people and myself. And we're going to get together. If you like this and this is helping you, but you still need to figure out on your own because you're hurting and you're suffering, what we're going to do, 4 of us are going to meet weekly for a month. We're going to meet for 2 hours as a cohesive group because we heal when we're not alone. We heal when we have the help of others. So again, we're going to meet for 2 hours. And you're going to get a 30-minute individual session within that group with me so that we can really help you uncover and release these hidden traumas. And I'm going to put that here in the chat box if you're curious about it, you want to learn about it, because I was just so, all of you, I was blown away by the emails, and I'm talking, you guys are pouring your hearts out to me, and I thought, well, it's pricey if you want to work with me, you want to fly here, but if cost is a factor, I made this a low cost that we can work intensively for a month, and we'll have a group chat, and you can reach out anytime, and I'll be there to support you for a month, because I'm bringing up this heavy stuff. I felt bad about it, and I want you guys to not hurt anymore and to not feel like you're suffering. So check out in the chat box here. Check that out. That's my new group. It's just for a limited time. It's just something I'm trying out where 4 of us are going to meet, really connect, and help you break free from all this. Sound good? Okay. So going back, we say a breakup, a divorce can unlock these old wounds, and we go through the human withdrawal. And we need to think about your relationships, perhaps all of them. And in what ways were your expectations not met? In what ways did you feel let down? What were the common emotional experiences that you had in the relationship? For me, I am the common denominator in my relationships. right? So you have to look for your relationship patterns, and maybe all of your partners have committed some form of infidelity. Maybe they all abandon you and go MIA. Or maybe you date for so many months, you make it to a certain mark, and then everything falls apart. And you wonder, what the heck's wrong with me? Or what's wrong with that other person? Well, when we're born and we're raised in this family of origin, and our experiences in life, and gosh, sexual trauma, physical abuse, emotional abuse can really impact the way that we're choosing our partners. Okay. And then our attachment styles are really rooted, especially 0 to 3, but all the way up to 7, 8 years old. That's when we're really becoming who we are. Our brain is getting wired. So my primary steps in my Break Free from Pain process is, number one, we have to look at what's not working in your life. And oftentimes these are relationships that are harming people. Oftentimes it's dear women that I work with primarily that are involved with alcoholics or narcissists, who really, narcissists don't have that capability to experience emotions and really get social cues that they're hurting you. It's all about them. And narcissists are really hard to admit that they have a problem. They're very hard to seek out treatment, and they're often very difficult patients for the actual therapist. I'm involved with many psychologists, PhDs in my office. I have 4 of them, and it is real. These trauma bonds are real. So do you commonly feel, betrayed, angry, sad, lost, fearful in your relationship? We've got to look at that. And that is including your relationship with maybe your boss or your colleagues at work. We say divorce, but this could be a breakup of a job relationship, a friendship, a best friendship like I had a loss of, or a romantic partner. Okay. So what do we do? How do we fix this? How do we feel better? Right? First, we've got to acknowledge that the breakup or the divorce was traumatic. And maybe it was a really big trauma, or maybe it was a little one. But I cannot tell you how much I hear from my clients who say, my marriage of 25 years to the alcoholic, and it's like, I was a single mom raising 3 kids and I had to figure it out, and it gets heavy on them. They're in their 60s and they're still impacted and carrying the whole weight of the world and their children and all the relationships they've carried on with them. And so this needs to be healed. But just first, just say, man, that was rough. That was really, really hard on me. And even if it's 20 years later and we're sitting here today and we're digging it up, But then you have to grieve. You have to mourn what you've lost. And maybe you got married and thinking, I was just at a wedding this weekend, and they were so in love and so hopeful. They really, really were. And, I'm sitting here, I'm blessing them. I hope they're getting better. But the reality is that the divorce rate is so high, it was really hard. I want to pull something up and read it to you. It was an absolute beautiful poem that was read before the vows were said. And it's a little long, and like I said, I can, if you just post, this is, it's by Neil Gaiman, and this is everything I have to tell you about love. Nothing. This is everything I have learned about marriage. Nothing. Only that the world is out there, only that the world out there is complicated, and there are beasts in the night, and delight and pain, and the only thing that makes it okay sometimes is to reach out a hand in the darkness and find another hand to squeeze and not be alone. Let's see, my okay, and not be alone. It's not the kisses, or never just the kisses. It's what they mean. Someone's got your back. Someone knows your worst self and somehow doesn't want to rescue you or send for the army to rescue them. It's not broken halves becoming one. It's the light from a distant lighthouse bringing you both safely home, because home is wherever you are both together. So this is everything I have to tell you about love and marriage. Nothing like a book without pages or a forest without trees, because there are things you cannot know before you experience them, because no study can prepare you for the joys and the trials, because nobody else's love, nobody else's marriage is like yours. And it's a road you can only learn by walking it, a dance you cannot be taught, a song that did not exist before you began together to sing. And because in the darkness you will reach out a hand, not knowing for certain if someone else is there, and your hands will meet, and then neither of you will ever need to be alone again. And that's all I know about love. And that's by Neil Gaiman. And it was beautiful because it was read just before the vows. And we don't know what we're getting into when we start that relationship and we fall in love and our wounds can come out, right? And that was just a beautiful thing I found to be read at a wedding. I hope it came across okay with me reading it today. But we've got to grieve the losses. And when I work with people, we do a trauma timeline. If you decide you want some help and you want to join this small group for this week, this month-long intensive weekly that we're going to meet, we've got to do the work, right? So you can consider joining my small group. You know, these traumas link back to the hurts of childhood, which make you more vulnerable, or at least get some help and consider going to therapy. Look into techniques like I do somatic experiencing. It's amazing. It is beautiful. My clients start to feel better. They soften. They get in touch with their body. They become alive again. And then they feel good and they start to learn the behaviors that are impacting them. And they start to say no. They start to speak up for themselves. They start to see the love they once had for their spouse instead of being completely angry at their spouse. They're grounded in themselves. They're freeing up their bodies to feel better and detoxing, cleaning out the garbage. I have an activity that I do where we go in, you're in a very safe place, you're really in your body. We have a dump truck come and we're loading up these big heavy duty black trash bags and we're pulling out your garbage. And that's what I'm doing with this small group. We've got room for just 4 people. We're doing it because I wanted to be able to support people. And the cost is a smaller investment. It's $9.97. And again, it's an intensive for a week. And I'll give you access to the Break Free from Pain modules and the summits that I've done. That's over 115 interviews. But most importantly, we heal when we are not alone, when we are supportive and we have a safe community. And talking here, many of you are getting support. But what happens when we sign off and it's midweek and Phaedra's not around? Where are you? Where are you in your head? How are you feeling in your body? Are you shut down? And are you not doing the things you say you want to do? Are you not cleaning out that junk room in your house? Because you know, if you just cleaned off your desk of all those millions of papers and 6 months worth of magazines, right? If you just had the energy, but we've got to get your nervous system regulated. If you're stuck in fight or flight, or you're stuck in freeze, and freeze is like, I'm just shut down. I know all the stuff I have to do, but it's too overwhelming. I just can't handle it. We need to look at that. Okay, so the work I do is somatic experiencing. I help regulate your nervous systems. The work of Stephen Porges, he blah, 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 so polyvagal theory. I hope to interview him shortly, soon enough, where we can talk about this. But we need to connect. Hunters and gatherers worked in tribes. They felt safe and secure. And now we just go and we drive home and we park in our garage and close the door and we don't even know our neighbors. So we've got to do something about this. And sometimes you do need to consider medications, right? Sometimes antidepressants, as you could try all the herbs, you could try all the supplements first, and I'm happy to help you come up with some names and study what would work for you there. But if you've tried everything and you're not getting better, then consider perhaps being on an antidepressant. Just please stay away from benzodiazepines. They're highly addictive, and antipsychotics. They're not good for you and they affect your metabolism of fat and they just cause all kinds of systemic problems. So don't do that. And really, if you're on an antidepressant, here's my little warning, is never, ever, ever stop them cold turkey. But if you're hurting and you've gone to therapy, you've talked to all your friends are worn out hearing about it, and you cannot get unstuck, you can either choose to work with me in the small group that we're going to do here just for the next upcoming month, or it might be that a little medication with an agreement with yourself, you're just going to try it to see if it gets you out of the hole that you're in. That's important, right? And so sometimes then I want you to, one of the biggest prayers, especially in 12-step, is the serenity prayer. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change and the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I have, in my times when I was in a relationship, I knew it wasn't right, but I just, fear of abandonment, fear of being alone, I couldn't leave it. I would stay 4 years too long. But then I got smart. I reached out for help. I did the work, got my nervous system regulated. That serenity prayer, whether you're religious or not, if you can just say, grant me the courage to change the things that I can. If it's a job you don't like, if you don't like where you're living, really right now, I want you to pause and I want you to feel that courage inside your body. Grant me the courage to change the things I can. And if it is ending a marriage, if it is ending a relationship, feel all that courage in your might and just do it and see what happens. Protect yourself. Take care of yourself. When we look at what's not working in your life, you literally remove that heavy metal anchor that's holding you down. But again, remember I talked about relationships and those bonds, especially loving bonds, can be like ripping the Band-Aid off. You go through withdrawal. It could be stronger than a heroin withdrawal. So do what you can, but again, finding that courage to leave the job that doesn't serve you, to move out of the town that you don't like and there's not enough doctors there for you and you're just not happy and your heart longs for somewhere else, right? When our insides don't match up with what's happening outside, we want something so bad inside, but our actions are not doing it. That causes depression. That causes pain. It causes physical pain and emotional pain. I've worked with thousands of people and I see that. That's why we're talking about hidden traumas. And that's why I'm a pain specialist talking about hidden traumas, because I ask the questions your doctors aren't asking. If you're going to physical therapy or chiropractic and you're not getting better, and that's a lot of you here watching, there's often a hidden trauma, a hidden memory, whether it's a fall, an accident, multiple car accidents that start to add up, it gets trapped in your body and we need to release those, okay? And again, I'm doing a small group. We're going to meet every week for 4 weeks. We're going to be together for a total of 2 hours a week. And on that call, we're each going to share. You get 30 minutes one-on-one. And when you share, you are getting the support of 3 other women and myself. When you share, you are not alone. And that helps you get over the hump easier. Then we're going to give you accountability. We're going to get you in touch with your heart desires and your dreams. Heck, if it's getting that storage room cleaned up, that room that looks like a storage room that you want to make into a beautiful like meditation room or a beautiful relaxation room, but you're just stuck and freeze that you can't do it. We are going to work together on that, and I'm going to hold you accountable. And if you have to text me or send a message to the group that you're going to do this, we're going to be there. We're going to lift you up. We're going to hold you up. Because that inner child, those inner wounds are going to be holding you back from making progress, from really living that life that you dream of, that you deserve to do. And like I said, I had a real bad breakup. It was my biological clock was ticking. It sent me into a huge depression. It was coupled with my dog dying 3 months later. It was this perfect storm. I couldn't sleep. That's why I say stay away from benzos. I had the doctor prescribe them for me because I had them after the accident. I took them for 2 weeks straight. I couldn't get off of them because my heart would like jump out of my chest with this raging anxiety. right? So I decided to hire a coach. And that's why I'm here today talking to you and teaching every week, is because I made a difference in my life. I found my purpose to go out and change the world. I was suffering in pain. People come to me with the worst pains. The hardest part of my job is convincing you that I can help you, because you've tried so many other things that you've lost hope or don't believe. And if you find these trainings helpful, please let me know. I want to hear that. I want to hear how they're helping you. But I just brought up this hidden trauma stuff and you guys are writing to me. And that's why, again, I had to put that out there and create this group. So I put it again in the chat box if you're interested. It's a low price point. It's $9.97. It's a 4-week intensive with me. And we're going to find a little community to help you and support you. Okay, just whatever you do, just find the courage to get through whatever it is. If you have an illness or a stubborn pain that won't go away, or a relationship that's not serving you, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about death. If there's grief, if you've lost a child or you've lost your parents and you feel lost in the world, we've got to deal with that. Okay. And then with the group, what we're going to be doing is linking your emotional hurts and the unresolved experiences of the past, and just uncovering them and releasing these traumas so that you can feel better. That's important. That's what we need to do. And understanding our patterns, when we start to learn our patterns, and I'm curious, have any of you had, as we talked about the awareness of your patterns, have you seen a pattern that you've had for most of your life? Let me see. Anyone want to share? You can share privately if you'd like. Yeah, let me know. Okay. So we need to learn our patterns, because we might keep, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again. But if we can pause and do a pattern interrupt, and when you pay money to work with me, when I paid money to work with that coach, and it was about $10,000 back then, I had skin in the game. I put my money in that I didn't have, and I'm so excited and grateful I did, because that was the only thing that got me out of the gutter and it got me living my life again. And since then, I've been able to travel. I've had a lot more freedom and it's been great. So again, if you want to consider this small group, again, 4 weeks intensive, we meet 2 hours a week, and we're gonna work on uncovering those wounds, because that's how I work with my clients. We've got to get clear, and then you can really take off. When we clear out all the junk, your body's going to feel freer, and then you can blossom, you know? And my clients, they call me all the time, and mostly it's tears of joy, because I built a safety container for them. It's a container of safety. They've got it. And mostly through our relationships with ourselves, we've got to work on that. You know, all those things you tell yourself you want to do, but you're not doing them. We've got to do it. We've got to just do it. But why don't you? Why don't you clean out that junk room? Why don't you clean off the million stacks of paper on your desk? It's this subconscious holding patterns, this subconscious form of self-sabotage. These are those subconscious behavior patterns that help keep us stuck in relationships that aren't working, and fear of abandonment. So we're going to work together. We're going to help release the traumas. And just, I cannot tell you how it feels to have a community of support when you're going through some really challenging times. And again, our first priority really has to be our relationship with ourselves. And if you need support, and most of us do in times of crisis, right? And I offer coaching and mentorship, and I use somatic experiencing, and it's an individualized technique. It's not, I can't just tell you what to do and it'll work for all of you. We literally have to do a custom tailoring. So before we work together in a group, you and I are going to meet. We're going to do a deep dive. You're going to complete a trauma timeline, and we're going to clear that. We're going to set just right goals for you. And the scary part is I'm going to hold you accountable. Because if your life isn't working right now, and you maybe don't feel safe in your body, your brain's going wild and crazy like a pinball machine bouncing around all the time, what we can do is get you grounded, get you centered, get you feeling safe again. When was the last time you felt safe? When was the last time you thought about doing something and you actually did it without limitations? When was the last time you felt joy in your heart so much that you felt pain free? That's what we're talking about, releasing this garbage that's stuck inside of us. That's why we're talking about the hidden traumas of pain. And specifically, we're talking about divorce or breakups today, because man, those are the most painful things. We want to set these just right goals and get you off of the couch. Stop your heads from spinning and really start to do the art projects you love. Start to go on long walks or do your gardening, or start to travel. Those are always so important. Always so important, right? Because when we get out of freeze, we need to get out of freeze, let go of the guilt so you can recommit to yourself. And first, it starts with a relationship to yourself. And we have to start with awareness too of what our patterns have been. And we have to listen to our heart. That anxiety, that depression, oftentimes it's telling you something and you need to really sit with it. But if you're busy binging on TV all night or the news all night, God, please don't be doing that. Stop that right now. Don't watch the news. It's just, it just makes things worse. If you're busy all the time, you feel like you're running around crazy and can't think straight, you're starting to forget things, or you walk into a room and then you forget why. It might not be the dementia kicking in your 50s, right? It could be that you're in a state of fear, sympathetic dominance, fight, flight, or freeze, and shutdown. And I talk about trauma all the time because underneath our skin is our nervous system. Our cranial nerves, our vagus nerve, it controls our digestion. It controls our breathing. It controls our heartbeat and our blood pressure. But when we're stressed, and everyone I swear I see clenching their jaws, and we need to release that. But if we're in fight or flight, then we're going to clench on our jaws. We're affecting our cranial nerves all the way from head to toe. Our bodies become challenged. Our muscle tone increases, and it puts that pressure on the bones. That's why I'm talking about this today. So let's leave with this, and I'm going to leave some time for questions if you have them. I want you to remember the last time you've experienced so much joy. You've experienced lightness and expansion. Because if you're contracting and clenching up and just kind of want to sit there, that's not getting your life moving forward. And you deserve that, just like I did. I hired a coach and I didn't know that I could do it, but I'm here. I've created 4 interview series. I've worked with the top health experts, Dr. Tom, Dr. Nandy, the Melt Method, Sue Hitzman. All of these people have been brought into my lives because I made a decision. I made a decision to work with a coach and change my life. Because the traditional therapy, once a week, 20, you leave, you're there for an hour and you leave, and then you're there with yourself. It really starts with self-awareness. We've got to improve ourselves. That's huge. We just have to work on ourselves. And when the inside is in alignment with our outside, that is when magic happens. And I do want to read something, and it's a beautiful poem. And it's often used in recovery communities, and it's by Portia Nelson. Let's see if I can pull it up here. All right. And listen to this one. And I want you, at least if you didn't respond much today, I do want you to put in the chat where you're at with this. Which one of these, hole in the sidewalks, do you relate to? I walk down the street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I am lost. I am helpless. It isn't my fault. It takes forever to find a way out. Number 2, I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I'm in the same place, but it isn't my fault. It still takes me a long time to get out. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it is there. I still fall in. It's a habit. My eyes are open. I know where I am. It is my fault. I get out immediately. There's a hole in the sidewalk as I'm walking down the same street. There's a deep hole, but I walk around it. I walk down another street. So where are you at with that? Do you keep falling into the same hole, the same habits, the same behaviors, the same pain problems over and over repeatedly? Or do you fall in and you get out quicker? Or do you see the hole, the problem, the addiction, the pain, and do you walk around it? Or are you in a completely healed state that you take a different street? You've learned your lesson, you don't go there anymore. Where are you at with this? I'd like to get you to the point where you see your patterns, you see your behaviors, and you make those changes. It's really, really important. I'm going to put it in again. Just take a look at it. And it's paintreatmentsthatwork.com, Release Hidden Traumas group. And we're going to meet intensively for 4 people. It's very limited. There's just 4 spots in there. And we're going to work intensively for a month because I felt bad bringing up all this trauma stuff and not giving you the support. Because actually, if one-offs don't work, you need that continuity so that you can walk around the hole instead of falling in, right? That's better. The best is that you can choose a different street. And that's so what I want for you. All right, let's see if you have any questions. All right. I'm gonna check Facebook too to see. Hopefully no sounds, weird sounds are gonna start to play. So Alan's asking, I have been fairly healthy, but I'm sure that all of these affected me, but not sure how. What should I watch out for? My parents never divorced. They were still married until my mother passed away 53 years later. I divorced my first after 8.5 years with 1 child. Always paid the support. Second marriage ended after 9.5 years. No children, but 2 stepchildren. Third marriage lasted 24.5 years before she died of illness. Well, divorced twice and widowed once after 24 years. That's pretty good, Alan. So we just have to look at if you have any addictive behaviors. If there's anything, like if you have negative self-talk or you beat yourself up or you're doing anything morally wrong or any type of addictions or things like that, we have to look at that could be partially related to it. Yeah. So any other questions you have as we wrap up here tonight? So if not, I have a song to play. No more questions? Thanks for joining me. Have you found this helpful? I hope that you did. This series has been helpful. But again, we have pain and what's under that pain. And I'm just checking in with being 20 years as a practitioner and working with people in pain and through my own healing. Again, I just had a trauma release last Friday with an injection in my leg. And once we shine awareness on our bodies, we stop the busy behavior, we get to go in. Sharon, what are you considering? Yeah. All right. So, you ready for my song? Any last questions? Let's see how this sounds. Go into the chapel and we're gonna get married. We'll see. Go into the chapel and we're gonna get married. This looks like 1969. To the chapel of love. All right, you guys have a great night, and I'll see you next time for this wonderful, wonderful series, Hidden Traumas of the 5Ds. I'll talk to you soon.